Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at TradeXchange. This is a real-time market news platform designed to help you stay ahead of breaking news and be able to trade around market news as it happens throughout the day. This service has some similarities to other real-time market news feeds like Benzinga Pro, Trade the News, and The Fly. So I'm going to cover what makes TradeXchange different and help you decide which of those platforms is right for you. So let's start by diving right into the TradeXchange news feed. This is a pretty simple interface, especially compared to something like Benzinga Pro or Trade the News. Basically, what you have here is just a list of breaking news headlines. These are all curated by the TradeXchange news desk. Most of them are tagged with this TX News tag. There are a few other tags for things like Fed announcements, really urgent breaking headlines, as well as SEC filings and macroeconomic announcements. What you can see here is that these headlines are pretty short and to the point. A lot of them are like 15 words or less, even as short as just a couple words here. Unlike other news services that I've seen, Benzinga Pro, Trade the News, The Fly all come to mind, there are no sort of extra descriptions or articles associated with most of these headlines. It's just the headline. If you want more information, you can actually ask the news desk. This is a really easy way to chat directly with the TradeXchange news team, find out a little bit more information behind the headlines, or potentially ask what's driving change in a stock, whether there's news that hasn't been covered there. So that can be a really powerful feature, similar again to what other real-time market news desk feeds offer. Well, I do like how simple and kind of just easy to read this feed is. It's worth noting that there aren't a lot of filtering or search options. There is a search here, but you'll see that the ability to search is pretty limited. You can enter a term, which can be a ticker or a specific word or phrase, the name of a CEO, for example. You can look at the specific date, usually today, but you can look in the past as well. And then you can filter by those tags I was talking about. And most things are going to be filtered as TX News. There's not a lot of filtering options, especially when you compare against something, again, like Benzinga Pro, where you can filter the feed by specific tickers or even a whole watch list. Really helpful for just tracking news that matters to the stocks you're watching that day to trade. With TradeXchange, there's no way to just filter to that watch list, so you have to kind of be keeping an eye on the entire universe of news that TradeXchange is covering and be ready to pounce when there's news related to a stock that you're following or want to trade. For me, at least, this makes TradeXchange quite a bit less actionable. One other thing I do want to point out that TradeXchange offers, though, is the audio squawk function. This is really useful. Again, something you'll find in other real-time news platforms. What I like about TradeXchanges is that there's not a squawk for every headline that pops up in the main news feed. The audio squawk clips are really reserved for the most important and most actionable news. So the news that's really likely to drive a change in stock price in real time when that news hits. And usually news on the audio squawk will actually come out a couple seconds ahead of headlines on the main feed. So it's giving you just that little bit of extra edge, while also allowing you to keep an eye on your charts or whatever else you're using to analyze trades. While keeping an eye on your charts or your brokerage platform, you don't have to constantly watch TradeXchange thanks to that squawk feature. So in addition to this main news feed, TradeXchange offers a community chat. So this is basically a chat room for everyone that uses the platform. You can contribute. I found that a lot of the conversation in here is just kind of, traders chatting throughout the day, but there is some conversation around headlines, and often the TradeXchange news team will actually add additional detail behind the headlines into this community chat. So I would almost like to see this incorporated into the main feed because you kind of have to watch it. There's a bit more information about some of the day's biggest headlines in this community chat that isn't available in the main news feed. For example, you can see here they're talking today about Warner Brothers Discovery news, talking about an acquisition, and you're getting commentary by the TradeXchange news team that the market seems tired of these headlines. There's not having a lot of impact on price at this point. And you're not going to get that kind of detail from the main news feed. You may not need that, but it would be nice to see this just integrated into the main feed, possibly with a filter or a special tag, rather than as its own standalone window that just gives you kind of more things to monitor, which can be hard, especially if you have limited screen real estate. One thing that I really like that TradeXchange includes are daily and weekly market reports. These are PDF files that you can get either every day or every week, depending on which one you're looking at. This is the week ahead report, and it just gives you kind of a lot of information about what to keep in mind about what news you're likely to see in the market over the next week. So there's a calendar of upcoming US and world events, both political and in economic news. There's conferences for large industries that might have major announcements that affect the market. Of course, there's a calendar of earnings before and after market each day. And then there's information about how different sectors have performed, how market investors are feeling about the current performance of the market, and then also look at, which stocks have produced the biggest moves year to date and what assets are producing the biggest year to date returns. This can help you kind of figure out where to focus your attention, what stocks have seen the most volatility, and where you should be kind of focusing your trading effort. This week ahead report has tons more information in it. I'm just going to scroll down here to give you a quick look. But again, this is a really useful kind of breakdown of what to expect each week. It's just a really nice resource that puts all this information in one place, whereas a lot of platforms kind of scatter it across different menus and different navigation panels. As I said, there's also a daily report, which offers similar information, but on a kind of daily basis. TradeXchange calls this the morning mashup. You can see kind of all the economic announcements and earnings expected for the day. There's information about how major assets and specific stocks are performing in pre-market. You can see upside and downside movers, how currencies are doing, and treasury yields, as well as get some information about major SEC filings, particularly around insider purchases and sales, and analyst activities around upgrades, downgrades, and initiations. So again, helping you figure out what stocks to put on your watch list for the day. And then unfortunately, there's no way, again, within TradeXchange to just filter the news feeds so that you're actually just getting headlines related to those stocks. I feel like that would really tie this platform together. And it's something, again, that platforms like Benzinga Pro, The Fly, and Trade the News all do. TradeXchange has its own separate platform. I'm not 100% sure why it's separate. It seems like it should be part of the main feed for SEC filings and press releases. This information is included in the main feed with its own tag in platforms like Benzinga Pro and The Fly. Here it's separate. You can see, quickly pull up any of these SEC filings and pull up the actual forms just by clicking on them, which is nice. The press releases, similarly, it's easy to kind of dive into these and just open them up. Most of these are coming from Globe Newswire, PR Newswire, Access Newswire, and Business Wire. Occasionally, you'll see other press release sources in there, but these are released typically by companies themselves, and they can be a good source of information. Typically, if any of these are that important, they will show up in the main feed as headlines because they're going to be driving price. But if you're interested in getting kind of on these announcements as soon as they hit, before they cause price movements, having access to this press wire is really nice. That said, there are no alerts. You can't set up filters for specific companies. So again, it's hard to just monitor the companies that you're most interested in trading. Okay, so that's really everything within TradeXchange, but I do want to show you one more thing, which is that TradeXchange actually has a mobile app. This is available for iOS and Android, and it provides a pretty good experience. You get access to the main TradeXchange news feed, as well as the community chat within this platform. And it's really helpful for following the news on the go. This is great if you use a mobile brokerage app and you're trying to keep an eye on headlines throughout the day, even when you're on the go. Other platforms don't offer a mobile app like this, and it can be a really big difference for traders who need to monitor market news on the go. Again, this is something that Benzinga Pro, Trade the News, and The Fly all lack. So this is a big advantage for using TradeXchange. So with that, I want to dive into TradeXchange's pricing and talk a little bit about who this platform is best for. So there's two plan options available, and you pay monthly or yearly. TradeXchange Member costs $44.95 per month, and TradeX Plus costs $69.95 per month. TradeXchange Member is going to give you access to the main news feed, the community chat, and those daily and weekly reports. TradeX Plus is going to add that TradeWire service, so you're getting access to SEC filings and press releases. That's really the main difference, as well as Audio Squawk, with TradeX Plus. TradeX Plus is going to add that TradeWire service, so you're going to get SEC filings and press releases. And the other big thing it adds is that audio squawk feature within the TradeXchange news feed. So that can be a really big one, and you're going to see price jumps in all the other major news platforms for access to audio squawk as well. This pricing is actually pretty affordable for a real-time news feed. TradeXchange is one of the cheapest ones I've seen. The only competitor that comes close for an audio squawk plan is The Fly at about $75 per month. Benzinga Pro is going to start around $145 to $150 per month for similar features, and Trade the News is over $300 per month for that audio squawk feature plan. So TradeXchange is really competitive on price. It's a great option if you want real-time newsfeed, but you're on a tight budget, or it's sort of helpful for your trading style, but not essential, so you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on it. That said, I do think TradeXchange falls short of other platforms in features, and particularly when it comes to filtering your newsfeed. The Fly at $75 per month does a much better job of this, where you're able to limit your newsfeed to only stocks that you're actually interested in watching. So either you can enter individual tickers or a whole watch list and limit your feed to those stocks and get alerted when there's news around those stocks that you're actively trying to trade. TradeXchange doesn't do that. You have to look at the entire feed and just be alert for when there are headlines about stocks that you're interested in trading. Given that, and given that the pricing between TradeX Plus and the Fly's Squawk plan are pretty similar, again, the Fly's can be about $5 more per month. I would recommend the Fly for most traders over TradeXchange. That said, the one exception to this is if you need TradeXchange's mobile app. This is something that the Fly doesn't offer. And if you're on the go often, having access to a dedicated mobile app for iOS or Android can be really helpful. So that's where I think TradeXchange has a slight edge over the Fly. Otherwise, definitely recommend taking a look at the Fly as opposed to TradeXchange. So overall, TradeXchange is a pretty reliable, fast news feed, but I do think it falls short on kind of filtering and watch list options. I really like the market reports daily and weekly, and having access to SEC filings and press releases is nice. This is a really worthwhile platform to consider if you want to add real-time market news to your trading, and you want to do so on a budget. Give it a try. They offer a 50% discount on your first month with code TX50. I'll include a link to that in this video. So you can get your first month of TradeX Plus for $35. It's a great way to test out the platform, and I recommend giving it a try.